product provided by Nintendo. It's no secret that I can be sort of particular when it comes to Animal Crossing, which in a vacuum is kind of hilarious, right? I mean, who has time to be pretentious about the funny animal life sim game? Me, apparently. But as I've tried to make clear over the years, this all comes from a deep place of love. Animal Crossing means a lot to me. This series has had my back for most of my life, and even the games that I've been more critical of have no shortage of positive memories attached to them. Except for you, I guess. But considering my extensive coverage of the series, it may be surprising to learn that there's one game I've yet to experience: Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Well, yet to experience might be a slight overexaggeration. When this game launched in the olden days of 2017, my phone at the time actually wasn't strong enough to play it, which is kind of embarrassing. And once I got one the following year that could handle mobile bug catching without spontaneously combusting, the honeymoon period had sorta worn off, my friends had moved on, and the Switch era was just kicking off, so even then I felt I had more important things to focus on. Not to mention the fact that gacha mechanics and other mobile game-isms were kinda turning me away from titles at the time. I think I played it for all of 5 days and 4 levels before throwing it to the side. Fast forward past 6 years of updates, and Pocket Camp has become extremely beloved and extremely recommended to me in particular. Talking about certain things I want in New Horizons always brought with it a handful of "it's in Pocket Camp" comments. Even so, I was always waiting for the right time to get into it. I wasn't sure when that time would be exactly, but I knew that both the game and its passionate fanbase would still be there to help me ease into things whenever I decided to do so. Enter Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete, my own personal stop making excuses alarm to jump into this game 7 years late. The unfortunate loss of online functionality brought with it the fortunate loss of in-game microtransactions. And with years of extra updated content in the time since I last played, I can't imagine a better time to see what all the buzz is about. But to save your time and inch you away from the edge of your seat before you get hurt, let me drop my first general consensus for an Animal Crossing game in almost 5 years. It's pretty good. Despite being an avid fan of the series and hearing years of good things to this point, my expectations going into Pocket Camp Complete were still pretty mild. Generally speaking, I wouldn't really call myself a mobile gamer. It's a subset of the medium that's never really appealed to me on a scale beyond quick and simple fun whenever a dedicated system's not available. Most of the games I have on my phone are exceedingly simple, ones that I had as a kid that I can still squeeze some enjoyment out of, or are holding me hostage. So truth be told, jumping into Pocket Camp brought with it the lessened expectations I'd typically associate with this form of gaming. And I was perfectly happy when I had those expectations met, and to this point, even exceeded. Animal Crossing Pocket Camp sees you taking on the role of camp manager, providing you with your own little plotted campsite to control and evolve. This mainly includes designing and decorating, as you'd expect, but also involves inviting animals to your campground and getting the right furniture or aesthetic down to impress them enough to pack up and follow your lead. There's some other fun side experiences that we'll get into, but the game revolves around this core concept. I remember that even 7 years ago, I thought this was a pretty solid way to adapt Animal Crossing into a mobile context, and that holds true now. Honestly, it's hard for me to imagine them doing much better than this premise. Obviously, I never expected the depth of a mainline Animal Crossing game from a previously free, now $10 spin-off of the series, but I think this gets as close as you can reasonably expect. Like the franchise's other spin-offs, this is a situation where I think it makes sense to put all of your eggs in one basket, the basket being visual design. It's the name of the game. Beautifying your campsite takes priority over all else, and while this isn't my favorite aspect of the series, I think it handles it fairly well. The game's happy home designer styled aerial design feels right at home on a phone screen, and I can only assume is even better on a tablet. This is the only time you'll ever hear me shut up about immersion-breaking mechanics in Animal Crossing. There is no universe where I'd want to move all of this around by hand. With Pocket Camp's entire gameplay loop revolving around this feature, it needed to be quick and snappy, which I think it largely succeeds at. I will say though, and I imagine this isn't as much of a problem once you get more control of your camp, I'm still relatively early, it can be a little annoying to have the furniture you select instantly placed in whatever free space exists in the area. Kinda interrupts my flow when I'm focused on a cute little corner of my campground and the hedge I want to use gets slingshotted all the way back to Wild World. I feel like it would be better if it just hovered in the air until you figured out where to settle it down and then became a drag and droppable ordeal, you know? Not the biggest deal, just an inconvenience. On the subject of convenience though, this is an area where the complete aspect of Pocket Camp Complete really factors in. Furniture in this game is not free. As a precursor to New Horizons, crafting makes its debut. Or return? I can't keep track of the timeline anymore. Furniture which isn't store-bought needs materials, and when materials won't suffice, leaf tokens come into play. And this is huge. See, back in those aforementioned olden days, we had Leaf Tickets, Atom No Cater's only ammo against our cause. This is where Pocket Camp stored its microtransactions, and it wasn't always pretty, turning a lot of people, my young self included, away from it. Even in the early game, I remember feeling like everything was simply too time-consuming or too expensive, and I'd never get anything done. In retrospect, I think it was just me being impatient, as I often was, but I remember seeing the sentiment echoed by other players, especially when special seasonal furniture and clothes for Leaf Tickets started to get involved. Leaf Tokens, by comparison, are incredible. And just to make sure I wasn't overselling the difference in my head, one Twitter search was all it took to find a bunch of other Animal Crossing fans acting like Santa just paid them a personal visit. They're so plentiful, not so much so that it completely removes the need to seek them out, but enough that purchases necessitating them, at least at this point, feel feasible. Again, I can't comment much on the state of the game in my absence, but I just bought a hot air balloon jingle who waves to me and oversees my campground with holiday cheer without making a dent in my pocket. Let me know if I'm mistaken, but I can't imagine that's how it was before. And Leaf Tokens also serve to speed up crafting time, which takes so much of the pain out of designing in this game. Again, I'm still pretty early, and I imagine that more complex furniture will start to up the cost. Cyrus does need to eat. But if it's comparable to the current rate of trade at all, that seems perfectly fine. Pocket Camp Complete cutting out in-game purchases might just be the best thing that could have happened to this game. And the thing is, despite it being originally designed around these player stopgaps, I don't feel like I'm moving too fast at all. I never feel like I'm breaking the game for gaining access to a few furniture items earlier than I otherwise would, when there are hundreds still out there for me to unlock. Overall, I think Pocket Camp Complete handles designing well, and evidently, far better than its previous iteration. But what's impressed me most about the game so far is the rest. Heading into Pocket Camp knowing it was a mobile game and knowing it was decorating focused and knowing what the franchise currently looks like had me thinking that this was basically it. And like I said, it absolutely is the core of the game. If you can't stomach designing in the series, you won't have a good time here. But having the expectation of next to nothing beyond designing made all the other little additions stand out way more in my mind. This is Animal Crossing, and while the animals in Pocket Camp take a back seat, as they tend to do nowadays, I still very much appreciate their integration. It seems like a minor thing, but needing to actually craft the furniture they like to convince them to come to your camp, alongside needing to do them enough favors for them to even consider the proposition, feels good. It feels like they have some form of agency in all this, especially since the context of Pocket Camp makes it a much lighter decision. They're not even uprooting their life to move to your town, they're just choosing a new place to chill and camp out, and even then, they need some actual incentive to want to do so. In a game that's expectedly much lighter on animal dialogue than mainline titles, something small like this goes a long way in giving them some life. And seeing them actually interacting with your camp, even in small ways, helps push this even further. This isn't just Animal Crossing Plaza once they arrive. They'll cozy up by the fire, they'll sleep on the couch, they'll play the maracas. Seeking out animals is one of the game's primary goals, and I feel like they're given just enough personality to make it feel worthwhile, even if those personalities aren't super distinct from one another. But, speaking of seeking out animals, this is where the game's really won me over. Say it with me now, progression. My favorite word behind like Prismarine, or literally, I say literally way too much. Progression in Pocket Camp takes a very different form from mainline Animal Crossing games, as it's extremely in your face. We've got levels now. Both your own personal progress and your friendship progress with animals is portrayed by a number increasing on screen. And you think I'd hate this, right? Because my whole immersion thing, right? In fact, roll the classic Protendo clip.
I think advancing friendship with an animal should be shown, not told. It should be shown by the dialogue itself advancing as the animal warms up to you, not by a level on screen. I think that works well for a mobile game like Pocket Camp, but I would never want it in a mainline Animal Crossing game.
As Classic Tendo said very eloquently, and extremely slowly, geez, context matters. If this was in mainline Animal Crossing, horrible, don't like it, I've already written 3 videos complaining about it. But just like the disembodied designing, it feels right at home in this mobile game. Relationships in Pocket Camp aren't supposed to have the depth that they do in regular Animal Crossing games, and rather than try to pretend that isn't the case, Pocket Camp aims to make you connect with them in other ways, albeit ways that are more conventionally video gamey. It's fun to see your friendship level go up after completing a task for an animal, or seeing your camp caretaker's level skyrocket after they do all your work for you. Yeah, I earned that. And your personal level is handled even better. Solving animal problems and completing other tasks gains you experience, and when you level up, you're rewarded with materials and tokens, but even better, a new set of animals become available to interact with. Shockingly, this dehumanization de-animalization of literally turning them into winnable prizes does make them feel more valuable than if I could seek out all of my top 10 right off the bat. I'm always excited to see which ones I'll get next time. Maybe it'll be a favorite, maybe they'll have a cool design, maybe it'll be a demon, who's to say? Pocket Camp turns it into a pretty fun surprise every time, and tries its very best to make up for the loss of animal complexity in most other areas. And this works alongside other features to keep things feeling fresh. The daily missions, the admittedly watered down fish and bug catching, the rotating markets. Even if they're weaker than usual, most of the features I'd expect to be here are here and accounted for. And more importantly, they work within this context. Is it possible that I'm simply starved for Animal Crossing after 5 years and my hunger's propping up Pocket Camp in ways I otherwise wouldn't? Sure. Do I still think Pocket Camp does a solid job of adapting the series into a mobile game? Yeah. Do I hate Bebe's voice? Very. Overall, I think this game's good, but probably an acquired taste. For someone like me, who's very specific about what I want from the series but is more than happy to engage with the spin-offs that don't align with that vision, I'm having a really fun time. For someone a little less open, it might be harder to get into it. But for what it's worth, I've already played substantially more Pocket Camp Complete than I ever did Pocket Camp, so take that as you will. While I've mostly been approaching it as a new game rather than an upgrade, I feel like the work it put in as an upgrade is extremely notable and extremely successful. I never played this game online, so I'm not completely privy to everything that was lost, but it's hard for me to imagine it was worth more than what we got in exchange. But let me know what your experience with Pocket Camp and Pocket Camp Complete are in the comments. If you'll excuse me, I'll be using this to hold myself over for Animal Crossing 6, which is hopefully soon. Please.